Wow, you guys, good morning. Gosh, what just happened over the last 24 hours? Gosh, a day doesn't go by where we don't see just madness on full display as Trump now literally dumps on protesters from a plane, a fighter jet. Now, by now you've heard the story. You've probably all seen it. We're going to break that down today. We're going to also break down why China probably isn't mad about Venezuela. And there's still no peace in the Middle East, as we were promised there would be with all these lofty speeches and all these things. But let's start with this particular article. Trump literally dumping poop all over the No Kings protesters as the gloves are now off. And we live in a reality where presidents troll the people like third graders. Now, what is the end game here? I don't know. Let's check this out, you guys. They call it brown liquid at first, but we all know what it is. You've all seen this. What is going on with this? I don't even know what's going on with this, guys. It won't even play the video now. We should probably just look it up. You guys have all seen it. Oh, I know what to do here. Let's try this. Something different's going on with these portal news stories. And let's see if this will work for us. I'm going to refresh the page here. Take off the blocker, the ad blocker. Hold on, you guys. Sorry about this. Now, Trump uploaded this AI-generated video of him literally taking a dump on the protesters in Times Square, the No Kings protesters. See if we can get this to work. Good morning. Let's see here. Here it is.
So there I was, scrolling.
Let that ad play. Yeah, I guess a lot of these portal news sites are now, if you put the ad blocker on, they're like, nope, can't do that. Not allowed. So that's what we're dealing with here. But we're going to work around it. We're going to figure this out, you guys. Ads. This is what you guys have to deal with on my channel sometimes, I understand. But, there it is. So that's obviously Trump, and he's in a fighter jet, and he is the king in this movement here. Dumping on the No Kings movement. Let's play it back. We're going to turn the sound off just because it's playing Danger Zone. Now, Kenny Loggins was the artist who made that song in 1986. Gosh, how many years ago was that? 96, 2006, 2016, 2026. So it was 39 years ago. There's King Trump. Now take a good look at his hat, because that is important. His crown, because that is important. We're going to break that down today. There are aspects of the king's crown that we have now discovered have significance and meaning. What's also important is the person who, or the account that made this AI generated video that Trump then shared. Xarius, we're going to talk about that as well, because these are all important aspects of this. The devil's in the details, isn't it? Let's keep playing this here. There's Trump in his fighter jet, King Trump, and there he dumps on Times Square. There's Times Square and the No Kings protesters. Wow. This is the reality we live in, you guys. Simply shocking. Now, what's going on with this? Let me go back into the chat and we'll begin to break this down. Good morning, everybody. Now, what I noticed, some of you also noticed this. during the No Kings protests was that there were very few people of color, which was weird. And we were trying to figure out why this was the case. Why were there not very many people of color in these protests? Here you can see, even in the AI generated image, there's maybe one Hispanic lady here, but there are no black people at all. And I noticed this actually in real time during the protest here in Stockton, California, as I drove literally half a mile of protesters and saw like 2 black people. And Stockton's like maybe 20 or 20% black people. So that was weird. But what is up with this? And they're basically turning the white people brown. Turning the white people brown. And this is where you got to ask yourself, what is the spiritual significance of this? Trump turning white people brown. Here's another image here. Again, it's all white people. And again, I don't know why this is, but this is what's being depicted and actually what's happening in reality. Like, what kind of algorithm, what kind of reality algorithm, I guess is what all this amounts to at this point, because it's happening in reality as well, can control the type and demographic of people that show up to a protest. Like, is this some kind of a test? And did you guys notice the same thing? Maybe I'm wrong. Let's go into the chat and ask you guys what you noticed about the No Kings. If you happen to drive by one of these protests over the weekend, did you notice the same thing? That there weren't very many people of color. Let's see here. Someone says, let's see here. Let's put this on live chat. Go through some of these comments here. Good morning, everybody. So if you're just showing up, hit the wheel on your live show and crank it up to 1.25 or 1.5 speed, and that will get you caught up on the live show, so you don't have to miss any of the topics. And Michael says, I noticed that the first time I saw this. Did you notice it in real life as well? The Brown Sound from South Park says, Tonette. It was old folks mostly. Okay. North Korea did the same thing with poop balloons too. Wow. Unbelievable. Now, it is an American right to protest. And I guess it's a president's right, an American president's right to protest the protest. It's just not typical because a president of the country is supposed to be above all that, right? You're supposed to allow people to disagree with them without acting like a third grader. It's a higher calling, so to speak. They call it being presidential. And Trump has basically abandoned all that. So what that means, I don't know. But did any of you see the No Kings protest? I'm curious to see if you saw it in real time on the streets of your city and what you actually saw, because that will give us an insight into this in terms of the demographic. Wow. Now, I believe, and we kind of touched on this the other day, and other people are kind of waking up to this, is that the No Kings movement is being generated by our own government. This is what I truly believe, that they intentionally created this movement so that their side loses. So that the No Kings loses is what I believe is happening. So many of you are saying they didn't see any protests. Some of you said you saw a lot of white hairs, which are like older people. Okay. Did anyone else see it at all in their city? Marcy says, so Trump in the plane pooping on the people is totally Mossad. They had it here in several counties, says Crystal. What did you notice about the demographic, Crystal? Danelle says, we were in a college town, Ashland, Oregon, so there were some young people, but I did see middle-aged white people mostly. Yeah. Isn't that crazy? I just want to confirm that so that I know it's not in my head or something I'm just thinking I noticed. No Kings. Wow. Pictures just usually blue and pink-haired Spokaneites. Okay, so skies over so Spokane saw mostly like liberal, but were there black people or Hispanic? All right, well, thanks for your input, you guys. Now, okay, so what I believe is that this movement was generated by our own government so that their side loses, so that the debate about kings is put to rest. Essentially, the end game will be that this No Kings movement will be embarrassed into submission at some point. And all of the stuff you're seeing now with Trump pooping on the protesters, it's just theater. Now, I wished all this was organic, but I don't believe it is. Now, I was able to pop in on the re-upload yesterday at the very, very end of the show. And that re-upload was from 2020. And we were discussing metaphors between the structure of a tree and our reality. And while I was watching that with you guys, I had another epiphany about crowns. Like the crown Trump is wearing in the fighter jet. A king's crown is a tiny bandsaw. This is what a bandsaw blade looks like. And it is a king's crown. Now, is this an accident? I don't believe it is. One continuous serrated edge. What could be the spiritual meaning behind a crown looking like this? Well, it's because I believe that it's interrupting our connection to God. Kings literally cut us off from God. Let's go back to Samuel again and see what the Bible says about all this. 1 Samuel 8:18, and ye shall cry out in that day because of your king, which ye shall have chosen you. You chose the king, and the Lord will not hear you in that day. So, all of our prayers are not being answered, maybe because we chose a king, and we keep choosing kings. Wow. So all these people treating Trump, or any president for that matter, as some kind of savior is literally working against God. I bet you're not hearing that message anywhere in any of the churches that you attend, but it is the truth. Here are the consequences of choosing the very first king mentioned in the Bible. The people will one day be so burdened by their king's tyranny that they will cry out for relief. God will reject them. Proverbs says the same thing. Then they will call upon me, but I will not answer. They will seek me diligently, but they will not find me. Micah, a prophet, says the same thing. Job, in a different context, says the same thing. Now, if you needed more proof about a crown, a king's crown being like a bandsaw, cutting your tree off from the Most High, well, there were banded tree stumps. We all remember the story. Literally, a ring or a crown, in this case without a bandsaw, but serving the same purpose, cutting off the tree from this reality. Taking the power. The banded tree stump is a central image from the prophetic dream of King Nebuchadnezzar in the book of Daniel. The stump, bound by iron and bronze bands, symbolizes the king's impending humiliation and period of madness, cut off from God. Stripped of power. Do you see now what the crown really means? God uses kings to judge his people. And when you bypass the king and you ask for God's kingdom to come, you escaped that judgment that God is putting on the people. Imagine you're the only person saying, you know what, we don't want a king, we want the Most High. God may have mercy on those people who finally get it and ask for his kingdom to come and his will be done, because we are accepting God's kingdom and not man's kingdom. Now, let me check in with you guys. We're going to go back to this other aspect of the AI video of Trump pooping on the crowd in Times Square, and that is Xerius, which was the actual, let's take a look here. Let's go back this up. Whoever generated this AI image seems to be an account called Xerius. Here it is here. Zoom this up so you can see this. So I looked this up. What does Xerius mean? Well, it's not some random name. It means something. This is it here. Xerius Argolis. It's basically a small creek, a seasonal creek in Greece, which fits right in to everything that's going on right now with all these connections to Apollo and Artemis. And in this case, there were actually a swamp at the bottom of Xerius. They drained this swamp. It says here, the removal of the wetlands near the mouth of Xerius to control the spread of mosquitoes and malaria has paradoxically increased area water use in winter because of a changing microclimate. So it's a drained swamp. But also, this was the site where sacrifices were made to the military. Huh. Trump in a fighter jet? Sacrifices made to the military? Really? It says, Argiv military officers were required to give a report of their conduct here before returning to the city, possibly at a nearby amphitheater, and sacrifices and religious ceremonies relating to the military were conducted at the temple. Is this an accident? Look at the halo behind Trump's head in the canopy of the fighter jet, the military fighter jet. Will there be some kind of military sacrifice? I don't know. Only time will tell. Now, again, this whole Trump dump thing happens in Times Square, as you can see here. Let's back this up a little bit. Times Square. Now, Trump is the Time Lord, and he knows it. And so, again, it's all in the details, right? Wow. Now, these aren't just empty threats that Trump is making with this. Apparently, shrapnel fell onto... Let's turn this ad blocker back on because, oh my gosh. Look at all those ads in here. Apparently, let's go back here. Shrapnel fell onto the CHP vehicle during U.S. military live fire exercises over I-5. Fortunately, it didn't hit any people in cars, but it did hit some CHP vehicles, California Highway Patrol, as the No Kings movement was popping off. Obviously, this was just a shot across the bow. This was Trump's intention to impede people getting to and from the protests so they would be smaller than we anticipated. But remember, all this is theater. I believe they're the ones that are actually doing this. Let's read this, you guys. U.S. military exercise that shot live fire artillery rounds over Interstate 5 on Saturday dropped metal shrapnel onto California Highway Patrol Protective Services detail for Vice President J.D. Vance, agency officials said Sunday. Wow. Incident occurred shortly after the detail had escorted Vance to the Marine Corps event at Camp Pendleton. CHP said that the shrapnel was from an explosive ordnance that was fired over I-5 and detonated overhead prematurely, striking and damaging a CHP patrol vehicle. A CHP motorcycle with the detail also was struck. Unbelievable. So this is where we're at, you guys. Now let's hop into some other stories today. Let me check in with you guys. We'll get into the whole China thing in Venezuela. You're probably wondering, why is China not saying a word about this aggression, United States aggression in the Caribbean against Venezuela, which represents 5 to 10% of China's oil, and 95% of Venezuela's oil that they ship out goes to China. Why isn't China talking about this? Well, I'm going to explain it to you. My theory, anyway, as to why this is happening. Now, what's this about? Well, just 5 days ago, these were the headlines. China pretended to be really upset about the U.S. invading Venezuela. But now all we hear is crickets. Literally no resistance from China. Let's read this headline here. It says, China says it opposes external interference in Venezuela after the U.S. strike on narco trafficking vessel. Now, this was right after the first vessel was hit. This was on 10/15, October 15th, so about a week ago. And they had tough words. China said it opposes external interference in Venezuela's domestic affairs after U.S. President Trump said it carried out a strike on the narcotics vessel. China opposes the threat of the use of force in international relations and opposes external interference in Venezuela's domestic affairs under any pretext, said the Foreign Ministry spokesperson Lin Jian. China supports the effort of combating cross-border crimes through stronger international cooperation, opposes the U.S. unilateral and excessive enforcement operations against other countries and vessels. So what is China going to do about it? What is China going to do? Well, here's what I think's going on. I believe that China already sold out Venezuela because Venezuela does not want to be part of the New World Order. And secretly, China and the U.S. are on the same side on this. And so therefore, they're just going to let this happen. So what's going to happen next? Well, mark my words, within the next 24 to 48 hours, as U.S. aggression increases onto Venezuela, I believe that the news will start to trickle this World War III rhetoric and World War III scenarios with China. And you will start to see China's rhetoric start to ramp up in the next coming weeks, but I don't think anything will come of it. But they will want everyone scared, thinking China's going to retaliate because of what the U.S. is doing. And what this will do is make everybody forget about the Epstein files and everything else that's going on in our country right now. That's what I think is going to happen. Wow. So only time will tell. This is my prediction on what's going to happen. Now, let's check in on the Middle East. Will there ever be peace in the Middle East? Well, if you were looking last week at the rhetoric that was going on about peace in the Middle East, these long, lofty speeches by Trump saying it was all over and he was finally able to obtain peace and there was an agreement with Hamas and all this other stuff. You would have thought, if you looked last week and saw that, was watching it, that there would never again be another Hamas attack. Yet here we are. IDF strikes terrorists emerging from terror tunnels in Gaza amid the ceasefire. So, a ceasefire without a ceasefire. And this all seems to have been for nothing. Now, I've been tracking this stuff for decades. A decade, let's say. Not decades, but a decade. And we've seen this supposed peace across 2 or 3 presidents. And there is never any peace. So what does that tell you? It tells you that every time they try to say this, it never happens. Wow. So, only time will tell, but I don't really have a lot of hope in this. Let's get into some other stuff today. Remember the Trump Arch 66 connection? If you hadn't heard, Trump has plans to build an arch that will go in D.C. in Memorial Circle. Here's the circle here on your screen. And we made an amazing discovery that we actually were talking about Trump and an arch 5 years to the day. On the exact day we uploaded that video, which was like October 15th, I think it was. I don't know why that video wasn't seen by a lot of people, but that was pretty amazing. That we were basically predicted this arch was going to be built. Then did some follow-up shows over the last couple days talking about what the arch probably means. There were several movies called Arch de Triomphe, and they were all about illegal immigration in Paris and in Europe. So everything is coming full circle, isn't it? Books and movies talking about illegal immigration that are named Arc de Triomphe. And here Trump's going to build an arch, and here we are in the middle of an illegal immigration blitz where they're going through and picking up illegals and deporting them. So that cannot possibly be an accident. But in our investigation and looking at Trump's proposed arch, we found some very strange connections. We found that Trump's proposed arch and memorial circle sits between the JFK and Lincoln memorials. The Lincoln memorial is back here. JFK memorial is right here, shaped like a Q. And a long time ago, we found that this JFK memorial was aligned to 66 degrees, which seemed to align with that number that Trump repeats in his buildings. But there's something more to this. I drew this line, and it comes out to roughly 66 degrees. A 66 degree alignment and 0.66 miles from the center of this JFK circle to the center of Trump's proposed arch circle. Now, this all remains to be seen where this arch will go in the circle and things like this. This is also on a slope, so it's not exact, but I think this is what they were getting at. 0.66 miles and 66 degrees. Well, another 66 has emerged in relation to JFK Memorial and the Lincoln Memorial and Trump's arch. What am I talking about? Well, one of you found this. There were already Lincoln and Kennedy coincidences that were named by other people. They noticed that these two assassinated presidents are strangely connected to one another. And one of those connections is the number 66. What am I talking about? Well, check this out, you guys. Remember, Trump was born in 46. Both presidents were elected to Congress in 1846 and 1946. But there's more, because they were both elected to the president in 60, the year 60, 1860 and 1960. That's another 66. So, do you think this is an accident, this 66 degree alignment and 0.66 miles? I don't think so, because it all seems to come together. Now, I'll put a link to this Wikipedia story on all the other coincidences that between these two presidents, and I'll let you guys, the super sleuths, try to break this down and see if you see any Trump connections, because he's putting his memorial, his arch, right between these two assassinated presidents. So you have to wonder what that's all about. What I should do is measure from the memorial circle to the Lincoln Memorial. I'll do that after I get off the show today. I wonder if it's going to be 44. Then we'd have 44 and 66 which would be 46, the year he was born. But I'll have to check that out. Wow, pretty crazy, right? So those are the stories that I had for you guys today. I appreciate you guys showing up for this live show today. We are live 10/21, October 21st, 2025. All right, I'm in the chat for a bit because I didn't have a lot to cover with you guys today, but I wanted to touch bases with you. And I'll make a note to myself to check that. Let's see, Memorial, Trump Arch to Lincoln. Now, this is going to blow your mind, and I did not have this in my show notes today, but we're going to talk about it. Let's go back to the picture here. Again, back here is the Lincoln Memorial. And we did a show in which we looked at Lincoln, and we realized that Lincoln was the first morphine president. He was the first intravenous president, IV, intravenous. Remember, nothing else could have happened after this related to intravenous if it wasn't for Lincoln. Okay? Why? Well, it was the Civil War. It was the first time they realized that they had the science to inject people's veins with things. And they did it with morphine to treat these injuries and things and give these soldiers some pain relief. And you can look all this up. It's American history, and you can see it for yourself that what I'm saying is true. He was the first IV president. So remember, there was no IVF without Lincoln. There were no injections and vaccines. All of this happened out of the Civil War. Now wrap your brain around that for a second. Wrap your brain around that for a second. Because this whole avenue here, whatever this avenue is, I don't know what it is, seems to be some kind of timeline, doesn't it? It seems to be some kind of timeline. Remember, Trump was allegedly shot on the right side of his face, his right ear. JFK was shot in the right back part of his head. Lincoln assassinated as well. We have Trump with all these IVF connections. He is the vaccine president. He's also the IVF president. Lincoln, the IVF president. I don't know if JFK had a component to that as well. But this is a little bit strange, isn't it? These synchronicities. Now, we also have a full playlist on the Planet of the Apes aspect to the Lincoln Memorial. Because remember, the plot of Planet of the Apes was a simian flu. Simian means monkey. And they came out with this vaccine. And it basically turned the people into monkeys and turned the monkeys into people. It had like this reverse effect. Let's look that up. Simian flu, Planet of the Apes. This is unbelievable, you guys. Simian flu. Now remember, they depicted Lincoln in Planet of the Apes as a monkey because the timeline had changed. It became an alternate timeline in which Lincoln was a monkey. Let's read this. The simian flu pandemic, also known as the simian flu crisis. Now remember, polio had the simian flu as well. People became sick with a monkey flu during the polio vaccinations. Why? Because the polio vaccine was cultured in monkeys. In other words, they were injecting people with monkey DNA, and people developed a monkey flu. This is all history. Let's look it up. Simian flu polio. Simian virus 40 accidentally contaminated some polio vaccines between 1955 and 1963. You guys, this was right around the time that JFK became president. It's right here. It's all connected. We are literally looking at a timeline here. IVF, intravenous Lincoln, intravenous Trump, and intravenous JFK. It's a timeline. This is unbelievable. 23 and 23 is 46, the year Trump was born. 23 is chromosomes. Monkey flu, changing the DNA. Let's keep reading here about the simian flu pandemic. Simian flu crisis was a catastrophic viral outbreak that resulted in the near extinction of humanity and the evolution of all apes on Earth. The pandemic resulted from a drug testing done on Genesis Labs, biotech company that sought to create a cure for Alzheimer's disease. At Genesis Laboratories, Will Rodman created a supposed cure for Alzheimer's, ALZ-112. He tested it on a female chimpanzee nicknamed Bright Eyes. One of the newly brought chimp specimens captured by ape poachers from the jungles of West Africa. Bright Eyes gained heightened intelligence in the process, but unexpectedly went berserk and rampaged through the research facility, believing her newborn child would be threatened by her captives. Bright Eyes, unfortunately, was executed shortly after her attack by security officers while Will was presenting the ALZ 112 to members of Genesis board. Because of this incident, potential fundings for the ALZ 112 project were cut, and all remaining chimp test subjects in the corporation's possessions were ordered to be euthanized. Then there was the baby chimp named Caesar. And we all know the rest is history. The Planet of the Apes is happening right now. Now, if you want to get caught up on this, go down the Planet of the Apes rabbit hole. I know for a fact I've got a playlist on this, so you can read all this, but I'm not going to read this whole thing. But the takeaway here, whoa, look at this, Alpha Omega. That's Apollo. All these components cross over. These are all metaphors for real life. Understand that this whole thing is based in reality. Now, how this will all play out, it remains to be seen. But there's something not right. There's something not right. All right, I'm back in the chat here. I'll put links to that simian flu article as well if you guys want to read that. All right, Apollo is Baal, yes. They have a statue of a giant monkey. Here, let's look up that image. Planet of the Apes, Lincoln. There it is, you guys. The simian flu, Civil War, IVF, in vitro, intravenous. It's all the same. Wow. Many people act like monkeys. They sure do. Truth in movies, TV. Yes. Blessings to you. Thanks, Geraldine. Charlton Heston movies will show you the path through history to the future. Yes, Brent, you're absolutely correct. We decoded Omega Man, and we found other just crazy synchronicities. Remember, Omega Man was the basis for I Am Legend. Colonel Neville, which is Colonel Devil, really, and Colonel is Corona. Corona Devil is what that really meant. And remember, he used Colonel Neville in I Am Legend, uses his own blood to cure the zombie apocalypse. So there's something to that as well. Book of Jasher, God turned humans into apes and elephants. I think that's connected too, Tracy. It has to be, doesn't it? That was the punishment for some of the people, not all. Because people try to debunk Jasher and say, oh, that doesn't line up with the Bible, because the Bible says that he sent all the people to different parts of the earth, and it absolutely does say that. But Jasher differentiates that. It says no. It says, well, it says yes, it agrees with that, but then it also says some were turned into apes and elephants. The rest were sent to different parts of the earth based on what their sin was and how involved they were with the tower building. So the two do not conflict with each other. It's totally possible that Jasher is correct, that some people were turned into elephants and monkeys. Think about it. That kind of makes sense. Where else on earth are elephants and monkeys like together? I guess India has elephants and monkeys, and Africa has elephants and monkeys. But I don't know of any other countries that have both elephants and monkeys together. So, all right. Apes and elephants are very intelligent. Yes, Heather. So it makes you wonder. There could be a human soul in there, right? Because they're like basically the animal that's closest to being human would be an ape or a monkey. Dogs are pretty smart too. The ones that truly wanted to kill God were turned into apes and elephants. Thanks, Lorraine Ray. Rhesus positive blood type, monkey blood. Yes, that could be connected as well. Absolutely. Yeah, plausible but creepy to think about. I agree, Ricardo. The island of Dr. Moreau. In Jasher, lion seen as important. One remained for our time. 12 monkeys. The Tales and Adventures of Little Baron Trump. It's massive. All right. Thanks, Rebecca, for being on it in the chat. Appreciate that. That's why they use pig hearts. Says reveal. Ravile. Elephants like Pinocchio's long nose. Animals have no soul, only spirit. I had a dream 4 years ago about Trump shaking hands with the military on my birthday that happened on October 30th. Wow. Yeah, it's fast approaching. Well, you know, the October 30th and the whole Halloween thing was in Donnie Darko, wasn't it? So we'll have to see how all of that shakes out. Donnie Darko and the connections to Trump. Here we are approaching another Halloween. Now, if you didn't know, Halloween is the beginning of the festival of Samhain. That's spelled Samhain. That's how it's spelled, but it's actually pronounced Samhain. And this is when the veil is lowest, when the portals open for like possession and these kinds of things in our reality. And this is why the occultists, this is a very important holiday for them. Okay. It starts on October 31st and it goes through like the 5th of November. And really what they're measuring is the Pleiades being highest in the zenith in the sky. That's the exact date, and it floats from October 31st to the 5th of November. And this is when they do their sacrifices and dance around their portals and wait for possession to happen, and they commune with these spirits. So, Back to the Future, the date was the 5th of November. That's when the portal opened to go through time, the 88. And Samhain was also the date where Claire Fraser in the TV series Outlander, when she first passed through the standing stones of Callanish. We talked about all this because it relates directly to Trump and his family. His mother was born 14 miles away from the standing stones of Callanish. I believe that the whole Outlander series was based on Trump's mother. She was born in a place called Tong, and I believe it was, I want to say 77 degrees from the standing stones on 14 miles. I think is what I remember measuring in Google Earth. So there's something to this, isn't there? All this is very real. When you look at the body of work, there's no way all this can be coincidence. There's just no way it can all be coincidence. Now, so the 5th of November, the Pleiades highest in the sky, and it's interesting that God actually names the Pleiades in the book of Job. He names the Mazzaroth as well. He's talking to Job as Job is going through his suffering, and Job is questioning everything, and God says to him, who can loose the belt of Orion, and who can bind the Pleiades? He names the constellations. He also names the Arcturus constellation as well. Interesting that the Arcturus constellation appears in that movie about Scotland. It's an animated movie about Scotland and a girl passing through the Standing Stones portal. We decoded that as well. Let's look it up. Standing Stones Callanish animated movie. Here it is. The movie's called Brave. Remember this? TV series Outlander, the Standing Stones. They mention Arcturus. Remember, she has like a bow, an arrow. And I believe they mention Arcturus in the movie. But anyway, there's significance to this because these are the only 3 named constellations in the Bible. The Pleiades, Orion, and Arcturus. They mention the Mazzaroth as well, which is supposed to be the entire body of the constellations, the 88 constellations. There's that number again. Time and space. Back to the Future, 88 miles an hour, the 5th of November. It all means something, doesn't it? Now, let's backtrack a little bit, because the back through history, the 5th of November was marked as a date when they would do human sacrifice. We went through entire series decoding Tlaloc, the volcano god, volcano and rain. Tlaloc is popular in Mexican history. They have statues of Tlaloc everywhere, and very large statues. And what they would do is they'd go to the top of these volcanoes, and they would take a single victim, the Burning Man, we called him. This is why one person always dies at Burning Man. That's the single sacrifice, which is done, interestingly, under a volcano. Thacker Pass is the volcano that sits above Burning Man. So Burning Man, that whole valley is basically it's volcanic ash, essentially. So when it rains, people are just basically dancing around in volcanic ash, lithium, and everything else, which probably adds to the hysteria and the magical feeling everybody feels when they're there. They're literally getting dosed with lithium as they're walking and trudging through the mud. I mean, if you were to measure their lithium levels, that's probably what you would find. We discovered that. Anyway, let's backtrack a little bit, because Tlaloc basically offered the single human sacrifice, and they would open up the heart of the victim. They cut open the chest and pull out the beating heart. They would light it on fire. We saw all this depicted in the movie The Apocalypto. That was a Tlaloc sacrifice. We read this in history, so I'm not going to pull all this back up again, but essentially they would use the heart that was on fire, the burning heart, to relight the kingdom. They would put all the lights out, they would light the heart, and then relight everything. Sound familiar? It should, because this is the modern torch lighting ceremony for the Olympics. It's the exact same thing. They basically borrowed it from ancient sacrifice. Tlaloc, it's the new fire ceremony. And they do this new fire ceremony every 52 years. The last one was about 52 years ago. We're approaching another one in 2027. And it will happen on the 5th of November, or very near that, whenever the Pleiades are highest in the sky, in the zenith, during the Samhain festival. So that's a little bit of history and what to expect, what's coming, 2027, the 5th of November. But understand that leading up to it, they're going to have, little clues and things like this. So you might see some of this during this season here that we're in now. You might see some heart lighting, things or themes and things like this. You might see some other things that relate to exactly what I just told you. You might see standing stones. You might see, these kinds of things. And maybe even from our very president in some of these AI images and videos that he's floating out there. You might see some of this stuff, and now you'll know what it means. You'll know exactly what it means because we talked about it. Yes, the Sacred Heart of Jesus depicts a heart in flames. Yep. And that's probably what the evil ones are actually trying to copy. Because remember, everything that God does, the enemy will copy because he wants to be like the Most High. This is why people get so confused. They think, oh, that sounds like the devil. Well, no, the devil copied God and turned it into something bad. Okay? That's what that means. So, all right. What else is going on, you guys? Now, none of that was in my show notes, so, excuse me if I've, not putting my thoughts together very well, but I just was going from memory, and so hopefully I did it justice. Scotland is having an earthquake swarm currently. Interesting. David's glitched out on him. Please thumbs up the video today, you guys. And they do have like a throttle feature. You can actually throttle this video. I don't know if this particular video will have that, but they have this new feature on YouTube where if you like the video, you can actually make it go further by throttling it. So I appreciate that. That's going to help this channel grow and get to other people outside of our community. Casey, have you seen the Midnight Meat Train? No, I have not seen that. Hello, Nikki. How are you? Okay. All right. Yeah, the burning heart. It's also a Catholic thing as well. Jesus Christ is King of Kings and Lord of Lords. Yes, Pamela. All right, you guys. I guess we'll pop off here now. I'll put links to everything. I love each and every one of you. Yeah, hype this video if you can. That's the word I was looking for. Thanks, Jamie. There's a hype feature. Yeah, that's what I was talking about. Hype, throttle. Casey, did you correct the years on 1984 book and movie to Trump's first and second term? Yes, Cannons. Someone put that in the comment section. They were talking about that. I think it was 46 years maybe, or 36 years. I can't remember, but there was the years like matched up. Yeah, YouTube's picking and choosing which channels get hyped. Yeah, YouTube games. All right. Okay, that's about it, you guys. Have a great rest of your day. Thanks for showing up. Much love to you guys. Take care.